talking.
So I could have gone to the next one and seen.
Yeah, I mean,
But
it's
they
a
are.
shame we had to put that
I haven't
county
used
thing
it
in there,
since
400 and some
I just gave it back to him. I said,
Okay, I just figured it was a tricky
I don't
way
use
to
it.
do it, and I didn't know.
Well, you got a new one, right? You
Well, I
got,
wouldn't call it new.
Did you go to Little Rock?
No,
so,
I got a different one.
Oh, yeah.
Supposed to throw the other one away, or?
If you go
No,
early, you
I
might-
traded it in.
well, there is.
I thought I was gonna get a nice modern iPad. I didn't.
Oh, are they?
I think our predecessor for the position had that one, and then just recycling down the road.
that's what they did. This is the original one.
It is.
This one is.
They don't work on the weekends.
But I do so well with them, don't go screwing around and give me new ones.
Yeah,
Learn different things.
right.
Yeah,
Hey,
our
Doug.
regular meeting is the last day.
That's a tap out.
We gotta be careful about that. Well, Doug told me. Well, he did. Doug found. No, Doug found. Oh,
Somebody pointed out to me this was 222,
Get
22.
the right Doug in there.
yeah,
Very obvious.
Steve Sims.
I know, you know what, I got
Look at
this
his own
one,
show.
I was putzing around on the PC.
You want to use
I just happened to see it.
here?
I was like, hey, Rob.
No, it's on.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm only staying for the first one.
But you gotta stay close to it. And this one, we can pass it around or whatever.
You're not leaving us, are you?
Well,
I'll get it to stay.
Yeah, I got a meeting I gotta go to, so Doug's gonna pick up the, yeah,
I need this for you guys.
Because you're waiting.
Yeah.
Halftime.
your laptop.
yes.
Yep, it is.
Everybody ready?
What's up, Jason?
You know what it is, Tom?
No.
You sure? All you need is a tablet.
Pen and paper. I'm going to a little bit.
More comfy here.
As long as I don't get him, he's gonna get a good view of my ball spot.
Glare. He's a glare filter on this place.
Put some gauze over it.
He's not behind you.
Oh, I'm out of direction. I'm gonna leave a gap for him.
All right, good evening. Call to order the February 22nd City Council work session for the city of Bella Vista. As I mentioned at our special meeting, I'm only going to stay for the first one, then I'm going to pass the torch over to Doug. I've got something I have to attend to this evening. So the first is a resolution adopting the finalized Benton County Hazard Mitigation Plan and for other purposes, which we tabled from January. The population figures were wrong and there were some other changes that had been asked. And Chief Sims, I'm going to ask you to address council if you'd be so kind.
Yes, sir, thank you. Yes, the population was changed. It originally said 495 or 4, I believe, which was actually a Vocus population, and it was changed to 30,104, which is correct for the 2020 census. And the comment was made about some of the language on the Bella Vista water towers, being Bella Vista water towers instead of POA water towers. I had them change that as well. I also asked them to change the water department to POA, but that didn't get changed, which that's really kind of minute in the situation. It's in Bella Vista, and we know the location and who the owners are of that property. I think that was it. It was.
I believe that was it.
Anybody have any questions? Yes, sir.
On page 32, halfway down the page, it says, right between two tables of Bella Vista, of the 214 critical facilities within the planning area, 16 are owned and operated by the City of Rogers government.
Gosh.
There's more than that in there, but that was a pretty glaring one. So, just
Steve, here's what we can do. Call them, if you would, please. Call your contact over there tomorrow, because I'm sure Rogers would want that fixed as well, and we've all got to adopt this. And have any other cities adopted
No,
this yet?
I do not know. I do not know.
I got the impression
And I
from
went back
talking
through that
with
again.
emergency government.
I'm sure when it said City of Rogers, we weren't too concerned about what it
So
said.
Larry, why didn't you call at the time and say, hey, we found out?
Well, I got this thing, what'd you send out, last Thursday? I didn't get a chance to look at it.
Well, I mean, you read it before, did it get changed between there because?
Well, I figured somebody would take the due diligence to read through the stuff that pertained to Bella Vista and find the flaws and fix them, that's all. I'm just suggesting that would be what I expected to do when we found glaring errors about population and other things.
I think if we
we
contact
just-
our county, we'll just have them fix it, and we can get it in the agenda.
Right.
If they won't get it fixed in time for the agenda, my suggestion is we pull this until the county can get an agreement together that's correct.
There's gotta be other, we're having.
We have no control over the drafting of that at all.
Mary, did you say Simonton had an issue, or they're looking at changing something in theirs?
I don't think so, but, okay.
Well, I had a question, I guess mostly for our attorney. Isn't there some kind of procedure, so-called scrivener's errors, when you pass something and maybe it's something that's
There is.
obviously just a typo? Or...
Well, yes. So I think if you approved it the way it is and they went back and fixed it, it wouldn't be the end of the world, it would be fine. But some of them get beyond that, and it just depends on what it is. My concern is, is there anything else? So,
I went back through that again, I must have missed that as well, so.
well, I think I saw where Decatur or someone approved the hazard mitigation plan. I think I saw a news report where they
I
approved
think
it.
there are some that have.
And so, then that raises the question, if you've got different city councils approving a different version of the document, but at the same time, it's incorrect. There may be information incorrect. They're relying on the county to provide the correct document. I'll be honest with you, if you went ahead and approved that, I think we could make sure that the typo, the errors get fixed, and it would be fine. I don't see it being an issue.
Yeah, can we go that direction, because I'm telling you, it's gotta go to the state, down in Little Rock, and they do some things with it, and, yeah.
That's why I was bringing up,
Right.
just saying, oh, these are just
But we do
typos,
now-
and pass it.
And just directly in response to your question, we have an ordinance that says when we pass an ordinance or resolution that has a typo in it, we can just fix it without having to come back to the council. I think that also may be similar to what you're saying. But we're talking about this contract document, which you all are approving the agreement. I don't think that prohibits us from making typographical and proofreading corrections.
Sorry.
Anything else?
All right.
I'll pass the torch on new business. That first one, I know they want to go through it in final because we want to get the statute done by December, and there's a very compressed timeline. All right, I will leave you in the good hands of Mr. Fowler.
Do I need that?
Good night.
Safe travel.
Thank you.
Okay. Everybody hear me okay? No worries? All right. Okay, new business. Ordinance, it says no, but I guess that's ordinance number 1. I'm just going to call it that.
It doesn't have a number yet, but.
Doesn't have a number till we adopt it.
Gotcha, okay. Waiving the requirements of formal competitive bidding and authorizing a contract with JH Creative LLC in an amount not to exceed $90,000 for the purchase of bronze statuary art for display at the City Public Safety Building. I believe if you heard the mayor's comments just before he left, he said, depending on city council vote on this, that they would like to move to third and final reading, if possible, at the meeting next Monday. So we're going to open up comments. Anybody have anything to say? Jerry?
I do not, anybody knows that I support law enforcement and the fire department, public safety. But I gotta tell you, I got a problem with spending taxpayer money for $90,000 on a statue. And we just got through having a conversation about doing things to retain, to encourage recruitment and retain employees in the fire department, street department, police department, all departments. And I don't know, I just cannot see it at this point being a justifiable expense to spending $90,000 on a bronze statue. I think it would have more meaning if that statue was paid for by a fundraiser as opposed to taxpayer money.
Anyone else? Larry?
I have a question. In terms of the funding of it, is it an eligible cost to include in our sales tax revenue funding of the project?
You put the bond you're talking about?
Yeah.
I just had a conversation with Chief about that just before the meeting. Do you want to speak to that for just a minute, Chief?
Sure. We were first planning this project early on, we were put with the Arts Council, and just because of this, the scope of the project and how tight the budget was, after talking to the mayor, there just wasn't room within the existing bond project to put a piece of art. We didn't really have a price at that time either. This was in the early phase. So I did tell them we'd develop an area up front to put a piece in the future, but that there wouldn't be enough room within the bond project to afford it.
So even at this point in the project stage,
Especially
where
this
you've got
point in the
some
project
known
phase.
stuff,
Sure. We only have a contingency of $200,000 left right now, and we're still early in the phase, and so we just don't know what escalations are gonna be and what's gonna happen and what we're gonna run into. So we just, and if we do have money left over, we do have areas we can use it within the project itself as far as IT type improvements that we have to do. So I would say no, I would recommend that we do not try to absorb this within the bond project. It's gonna affect the overall building. Okay.
Yep. All right.
Quick question.
Yeah. Yes.
About process first, Jason. So this is an ordinance that's kind of worded in a way that says we're going to waive the bid process. But also, isn't this part of our process that we approve a budget early in the year, hundreds of lines of detail, that represents a plan for the year, but something of this magnitude of spend does indeed have to go through this gate of city council approval?
Everything, first of all, every dollar you spend has to be in the approved budget. So
Right.
that's just to buy ink pens or to buy statues or to buy tables. So that's always the case. That's the appropriation. That's the legal authority to spend the money. Then, in order to make particular purchases, we have rules.
Right.
So that's what this process is.
Right.
So if it's over $35,000, then you have to have competitive bidding, or if it's not reasonable or practical to bid it, such as a piece of artwork, it would be a very particularized sort of thing. The requirement of competitive bidding can be waived, but only by ordinance of council. So when you do that, and then you authorize the contract itself, you do have the authority to authorize or not authorize a contract over $35,000. So I guess you want to call it another check against
A
the
gate.
system,
Yeah,
or
call it a gate
or whatever.
that we have to
but
go through. And
the
this
money
is-
is appropriated for it, from what I understand, because there's no budget amendment here. But you still have to approve the agreement and the waiver of the competitive bids.
So if I could, I'd like to comment on this too, maybe supplement kind of Jerry's comments there. You know, I think we all on council share a real enthusiasm and pride for this new public safety facility. And I see it as a game changer for the culture of the Bella Vista Police Force. And we've talked recently about creating this culture where our officers feel appreciated and recognized for the important service they provide to our community. There's a practical aspect to that, and that is that it makes people want to stay. And so we're on the verge of delivering a real game changer here for this department. And I couldn't be more excited to finally see that come about. When I think of the places I've worked over the course of my career, the greatest factor in my satisfaction at any of those workplaces has been the relationships that I've had with my coworkers. And now we're about to deliver this remarkable facility where our police officers can come together. They can develop relationships. Often those relationships are going to last them a lifetime. And we've lacked that. We've sorely lacked that. And I can't imagine really being in a workplace where you don't really get to affiliate, break bread from time to time, be together, tell jokes, do the kinds of things you do maybe in an office environment. And so I'm really, really excited about that. So this is nothing about pro-law enforcement or not supporting the police department. I don't think it's that at all. I have complete respect for the intentions of the people who proposed this art install. Complete respect. I think the hearts of everybody involved are all in the right place. But as members of the city council, we have to exercise our most important responsibility to be stewards of taxpayer money. And spending $90,000 of taxpayer money on a single art installation strikes me as a splurge, and an extravagant splurge at that. And so it's difficult for me to wrap my mind around spending this money at the very same time we are discussing whether we can afford to compensate city employees in a way that will attract and retain the right workforce. So that conversation has been more recent. That really has caused me to really want to rethink this. I don't believe that municipalities of our size typically spend taxpayer money in this magnitude for this kind of project. Funding an installation of this type is more typically funded by private contributions, not taxpayer money. So I prefer that the city council contemplates a more modest approach here for art in the new facility, because as we discussed in the previous work session when we talked about this, I think we kind of got the cart before the horse. We're talking about a $90,000 bronze statue. We haven't discussed in total what's the budget for art in the new facility. And so we haven't placed the first piece of art inside the facility, where there's a lobby, where there's meeting space, where there's a courtroom. There's nothing. We haven't talked about any of that. And I'd rather see the Art Council and the City Council contemplate an alternative that is much more modest in terms of how much we spend, and that celebrates Bella Vista artists. We have the Art Council recognizing some outstanding artists here who have art mediums that would be appropriate for this facility, whether it's painting or mosaics or photography. Why not use, again, a more modest investment, commission those artists, Bella Vista artists, to contribute their talents that would reflect the beauty of our community inside this facility. I think that would be a much more appropriate way for us to spend taxpayers' money. I don't think spending $90,000 on a single art installment, I don't think it's conservative. I don't think it's typical of municipalities, and I don't think it fits the needs of Bella Vista at this time. I'd be interested in working with Demera on an alternative, on a compromise that doesn't utilize $90,000 of taxpayer money for a single art installment.
Question.
Oh, Larry?
One question for Chief Graves. You know, Chief, in the architect's budget for furnishings in there, do they have some dollars set aside for paintings and decorative things in the rooms, courtrooms, offices, entrance?
No.
You don't know if they have anything in there of that fashion?
No, I was going to handle that at a later time. I mean, I had some different ideas on what to do from some of my past experience, which was relatively inexpensive. I think I talked to some of the council members about this. And I'd be happy to talk, just taking some of our stock photographs of officers doing different duties. I mean, you've seen some of these pictures, on our annual reports and stuff, and you could blow that stuff up, put it on sort of court type board and pretty inexpensively, and put that throughout the station. That's a type of artwork. That's something I had in mind because it celebrates the work the officers are doing in all different functions in the department, and allows them to be pride, have some pride in that when they see it when they're going. Now, as far as the lobby and public areas, maybe we splurge and do a few other things, and I haven't thought that far ahead, to be honest with you.
But the architect, to your knowledge, has not incorporated any of that in his budget?
That has not
for
been put in the budget. The furnishings are in some additional money we did get to the council approved a few months back, so furnishings are are already paid for, shall I say, and some money is set
All
aside.
the funding is already approved,
Yes, for furnishings.
and that was
But not for art.
not a part of that budgetary process for you. Artwork was not
Art
a
was
part
not,
of that.
correct.
Chief, would it be fair to ask you your opinion on this bronze?
I mean, yeah, I mean, I like statutes. I mean, when they're done like that, I think they add value. I don't have a problem with them. I've spoken to a couple other council members at different times about this. You know, my job was to get the best facility possible to take us 30 years into the future. Art, I'm not an artsy person, I'm sorry, so art wasn't a consideration of mine. Do I think it'll be a negative? Absolutely not. I think it would add to the building. Is it necessary to open the building and go forward and provide good police service, excellent police service to Bella Vista? Absolutely not. It would be, I think, a cherry on top is what someone mentioned to me as far as the facility is concerned. It was never my primary concern, to be honest with you. I hope that's, and don't take that as a negative. Again, I had one function, which was to build the building the best we could to take us into the future with the money we had, and art wasn't a part of it for me. Sorry. But I don't think it'll be bad. But again, I'm not the money person here. I have my budget to build the building and run my department. And if you folks think that this piece is worth it for the building, I'm going to be happy. If you think it's not a good time, I'm going to move forward, and I'm not going to be really horribly upset because I know that you know what's going on with the money and the best function for it. Is that fair? I mean,
Good answer.
yeah. So I guess that's my opinion.
But is this in the budget?
I'm sorry?
I got the impression from what you said.
It's in the
this
budget,
is-
it's in the
yeah.
city budget,
Yeah.
yes. Money for the city projects.
But, you know, that, I get the impression there's some headwinds against this. I think aesthetics are important, and right outside the front of the building is important. And it was in the budget, and the budget was pretty conservative. I was very impressed with how low the increases were overall in the budget.
But it's most budgets, and where we get involved in terms of the level of detail, there are a lot of things that are in there that we don't actually see or physically know that are in there, and they come about like this. And
True,
it's not
I
a
agree.
surprise, but
Yeah.
it's a well-planned budget. It was approved. We felt it was a conservative budget in terms of expending for the city, suitable for what we projected for income for this year. I think the artist, if you read through his resume, the artist was certainly laudable in terms of selection. I would have to agree. He's got lots of other similar types of statutes that he's done with dogs, soldiers, policemen, so on. So I think the selection was well done. I can't fault the proposal here, but I do have concerns about whether we should be spending it at this time or make it a joint effort, perhaps with some city money and some money at large in the community to make it go.
Was there another question?
Well, you know, I did that job for 39 years, and this man sits here and tells me that, you know, the guys don't get along because the building's a little ratty and that kind of stuff. Well, I've worked in 5 ratty buildings. Trust me, the guys get along just fine. They're looking over each other's back. They do things together. It's a matter of us asking them or showing what's going on, but they get along just fine no matter what kind of building you stick them in. We have a lot of fun with the building. We laugh at it. Sometimes we beat the snot out of it, but it's got nothing to do with, you know, going to bring the morale over the top. They're going to be super happy because they got a new building. They're going to have room to turn around in. They don't really care what kind of pictures you got on the wall. I bet you there are 6 or 7 pictures on the wall in the current building you could take and stick in your lobby and they'd be wonderful. Just take them off one wall and put them on another. You know, granted, it's a lot of money, but obviously we passed it unanimously, and it's amazing that Larry missed it because he doesn't miss anything. But we did pass it unanimously. And granted, it's a lot of money. It may not be well spent, but we did pass it.
Okay.
We did pass it.
All right, I'm gonna take a cut at this, all right? Because you all have. So we all of us, city council members, we sit in our own little vacuum, right? And we contemplate resolutions and ordinance on our own. That's what we're supposed to do. Then we come together and we discuss them. So good conversation. So here with me setting my little vacuum. These are the notes I took for myself. So our family, I'm talking about our family, my wife, 2 daughters, is, we were making our way through raising our family. No one lived on a tighter budget than we did. And we only bought something when we didn't absolutely need it, just occasionally. When we did, it would be something that we would treasure, something that we would take pride in, something that would make us feel good and say, you know what, we're really glad we did this. In this case, I believe that will be the feeling once everything is said and done with the public safety building, if this statue is included. On ribbon cutting day, I think it was me, I said, this statue is going to be the cherry on top. It's going to be the icing on the cake. I can clearly visualize the building with the portico without a statue and what it'll look like, and it's going to be beautiful, but I can also clearly see it with that statue standing there. It's going to make a statement. When people enter and leave that building, this statue will set a tone of respect, and for some even probably reflection. You know that this is, you're going to know that this is where order begins, and also in this environment that exists in other places, we as a community will make a statement to our police officers that environment other places doesn't exist here. We support them now, our police force, and in the permanence of this statue, we will let them know that we will support them always. So I most heartily support the placement of this statue as a symbol for the enforcement and the expectation of law and order in our community. And I said it's going to be there, it's going to be permanent, it's going to be there always. So $9,000, is it a lot of money? It is, but I don't think we'll look back on this and have any regrets at all. So that's where I stand on it.
Good comments, Doug. I think the facility does those things as well. I think the functionality that's in the facility is far more important to me than an extra $90,000, which if you think of that $90,000, that could fund a lot of different things, including probably a couple police officers for a year. So I just think where we're at as a city, for me, it doesn't make sense. Well,
yeah, well, that's
probably enough said for.
No, that's okay.
for my
And,
part.
yeah, right. And so the meeting, it's a work session, right?
Yeah.
So we all gave our perspective on it, and we can all debate it next week, and then we can vote on it. Yes, sir. Okay?
I'd like to say one more thing. I'd like to finish one more thing. I'm sure the chief, or at least I feel confident that if he had an extra $90,000, that he could find a better use for that $90,000 in the police department than this bronze statue. At least I feel like he probably would find that would be more benefit to the city as well as to law enforcement.
There's a myriad of ways to spend any amount of money. So, okay. So we'll wrap up the conversation on this. Let's move on. Okay. First resolution, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with First Employment Staffing in an amount not to exceed $41,395 to provide personnel for seasonal right-of-way mowing for 2022. I mean, this is an annual contract, something we always do.
Mike Buttons.
Mike, do you want to make comments on it?
If anybody's got any questions, I'm here to answer.
I had a question. I couldn't recall how much it was last year. I was just curious, given all the talk about inflation.
I can't tell you the exact figure, but I went up 50 cents an hour,
Yeah.
so.
I think it was in the high 30s because I saw it when I was redrafting
Right.
the resolution for this year. So maybe 38, 39,000 last year, I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And it's essentially for 2 people, right?
It is.
Yeah.
I'm surprised how many man hours it is. Just a lot of man hours.
Yeah. Lots of rooms.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else on that? Any comments? No? All right. So, next resolution, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Riggs Cat of Lowell pursuant to a Sourcewell Purchasing Cooperative, formerly NJPA, purchasing agreement for the purchase of a rubber-tired wheel loader in the amount of $1,000 for use by the street department. And Mike, I know you probably do want to speak on this and how the loaders are going to be moved around and our intent of what we're going to do with old
Yeah,
fire
I
station
mean,
number 3.
of course, it's basically originally was a replacement. However, the street department just got the old fire station number 3, and we're going to turn that into a satellite station for the street department. So the intent was to go ahead and keep this older machine that we're replacing and move it out to that facility.
Okay. So how often, I mean, whenever impending weather's like rolling in, maybe like right now, would you bring a couple of people in and maybe have them spend the night out at number 3?
That is
So they
correct.
can hit the streets, you know.
Yeah, we utilized it, this last storm. We had street department personnel stay there.
Okay. Okay, and then we plan in the future sometime to build a salt and sand storage building out there behind number 3, right?
Hopefully.
Number 3.
Hopefully, that's the intent.
Okay.
Could I ask a question?
Sure, Jerry.
I'm gonna back up to the contract on mowing. That's for, we have two mowers, right? You said 2 people, that was for 2 people, right?
That's for 2 people, yes.
We got 2 tractors for mowing, is that right?
No, what we do is we utilize 2 full-time people for that, and then 2 part-time, or I call them seasonal people. So it's a total of 4.
I'm sorry. So is it feasible to lease a couple more tractors? I mean, so that, I know it's a big job to get from both sides of the city to do the mowing on both sides. Is it feasible to have, add a couple of tractors, whether it be from a lease agreement or whatever?
I don't really need tractors, I need people.
You need people.
We've got 6 tractors,
Oh,
so,
okay.
yeah, I just need people to operate them.
So, I mean, I know there's a problem in coverage on both sides of the city, getting it all done at once in any kind
Quick
of
enough.
cycle. Right or wrong?
I could use 2 more people if you want to give them to me. 6 people would be better. 3, we basically divide the city into east and west.
Okay.
And that's, the geographical line is Highway 71. So to answer your question, I use 2 people on the east and I use 2 people on the west. If I've got 3 people total on each side, then we could keep up with the mowing better.
Okay, so why did we not have those 2 people? You didn't ask for them, or we wouldn't give them to you,
I haven't asked for them.
or, you didn't ask for them?
No.
Larry?
One question is, what is your schedule for mowing? Is it 2 times in each area, 2 times in every street, or is it 3 times in every street?
During the season?
Yeah. Is there a target there? Or do you do,
It takes us about probably 3 to 4 weeks
to do a
to
round?
do a route, if you would. So, I mean, it's also dependent upon the weather too. I mean, as far as how dry it gets in the summer, that type of thing.
Is there any chance of encouraging the employment provider to outsource to military folks for their staffing?
Are you talking like putting in my specs to strictly ask for military people?
Or do I have a preference for it?
That
Yeah,
may be problematic. These are seasonal temporary workers that are employed by
Right, I know.
First
I understand.
employment.
I understand.
And so,
We can ask for preference for that consideration.
I'd need to research that to make sure we weren't violating some law. Probably so, but as soon as I say yes, absolutely, there'll be some statute that would stand in the way at a state level. We can, if there's some desire to do that, I'll look into it.
given everything I've heard about how hard it is to get people, I imagine right now the temporary agency is taking veterans, non-veterans, anybody else they can find.
Everybody who's warm.
Yeah.
Yeah. For the most part, the people that end up doing that are some of our own retirees that have worked for the city before. Because, you know, they retire and, you know, they don't want to work, you know, full-time. So that's kind of been the trend the last few years. So, you know, it usually, not always, but it usually turns out that we get the retirees to come back.
Okay.
Well, if you could use 2 more people to keep the mowing kind of caught up, I would suggest that you ask for those 2 more people.
Do you consider us being behind on mowing?
We are maybe the first part of the season, like in the April, you know, during the jungle growth, so to speak. I mean, we don't really get that many complaints about it, to be honest with you, so. I mean, I think we do a good job keeping up with what we have.
I think this
I mean, you can always do better, of course, but I think overall,
Sounds too bad.
No.
yeah.
I
And
think-
not only that, but we help the state mow their right-of-ways as well. The state only mows their right-of-ways 3 times a year, but we help them mow 279 and 340.
That's pretty common for municipalities to do that, to help out the state through.
If a municipality wants to do that,
If they
but
want.
we get a permit, I mean, we do the permit process to do it.
I think, so I've been on council 5 years. I think I've had 2 calls, and your department was really responsive. They came right
Right.
out and took care of the situations, and they were line of sight kind of things. But that's really all I've had in
Right.
5 years.
Well, I don't have any complaints. I just have heard you say, or had heard someone say that you have a problem, especially whenever we have a lot of rain and the grass is really growing. You have a problem keeping up as far as the 2 sides of
Yeah.
the city. I mean, one of them gets out of control before you can get completed on the other side. And that's why I brought that up. So
Right.
if it's not an issue, it's not an issue. But if it is, well then.
I think everybody has that issue, even a homeowner has that issue. You know, when it's raining a lot, you can't
Yeah,
mow the
it's
grass,
great.
but,
So,
yeah.
if it's not an issue and it is an issue and all you need is 2 people to correct it, I mean, it's like that would be a simple process.
Right?
Well, I've noticed they're good at mowing right after I put up my vote for John Flynn signs.
And mow 'em over?
Yeah, they get right out there.
That's a good time to get at it, right?
I've got a pretty funny story about that last year, but I'll share that later.
Okay.
All right, is that it on the mowing? All right.
This
thank
was
you.
about the wheel loader. Actually, we moved on to the wheel loader and got back on. it.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's right, yeah.
You got anything else about the
Anything
wheel
else on the
loader?
wheel loader?
Unless you got a question.
Okay. All right, next resolution. Authorize the mayor and city clerk to enter into a 5th amendment to the limited terminable license agreement or trail system license with Bella Vista Village Property Owners Association Incorporated for the purpose of adding parcels for expansion of the public trail system.
Emily's here.
Yeah,
Trail
that's right.
manager.
So we have Emily, our trails manager. Emily, you want to speak to that? Because in the packet, when I was reading it, just listed the parcels, and I went and looked at each one of them, you know, on the GIS map, just to see where they were. And they're kind of spread out, right? They're not contiguous or anything, so there must be a, I said, it doesn't look like there's one continuous trail this is going to manage just several different pieces.
No, there's not. I actually put together some packets for you guys to realize they're just numbers. I have some there.
Y'all can look at it. In fact, I think I got it in my email back at the office.
Do you want Jason?
Well, if you got an extra, I'll
I
take
do,
it. but-
yeah. So, let me grab a copy for myself. The parcels that we're adding are all over the trail system. They're basically connector trails that are enhancing the current trail system. So on the first page of the packet, those parcels that we're adding, we're calling the Manchester connector, and they will connect Blowing Springs to Lake Bella Vista underneath Manchester. So that will provide access to two of the most popular areas. On the second page,
Would you show us that, Emily, like where you're talking about?
Yeah.
I know there's trails over there already, so what is the net new trail there?
yeah, I didn't have time to add the alignment in, but the 2 yellow parcels are the ones that are affected. The alignment will connect the brown trail on the far right in Blowing Springs through the yellow parcel on the other side of Manchester, and then through Benton County down to Lake Bella Vista, connecting to the Rabbit Hole Trail.
So the trail's not indicated here yet?
It's not indicated yet.
But and it doesn't exist yet?
It does not exist yet.
And so this is going to be to connect the Blowing Springs area to these other trails to the east of it?
Yes, to Lake Bella Vista,
Lake
so
Bella
to
Vista.
the
So
south of it.
Roughly, what's the distance? It's not very far.
That connector is about 2/3 of a mile. And as part of the approval process with the POA, the Trailblazers talked to all the neighbors in the area, and everyone was on board with it except for one. And the Trailblazers rerouted the trail to go farther away from that property owner's property.
All right, that's fine. If we could do that on each one of these, that'd be
Yeah,
useful.
absolutely.
All right.
Any other questions on this one? All right, so on the second page, this is approving additional trails in the Reardon Road area north of the new Fat Tire location, the Birchdale West Golf Course. We will add a loop trail in the old golf course area, and then adjust the current alignments of the tunnel vision trail so that we can add a tunnel underneath Reardon. So that way pedestrians aren't crossing at grade on Reardon.
Is that loop that you speak of, is that hard surface or is that soft surface?
That'll be soft surface, though we're still working out the alignment with the Trailblazers.
And is that what we've referred to in the past as adaptive trails? They're wider, they're more easier to navigate?
Yeah, this one will be probably 3 feet wide. It will be oriented towards families, beginner mountain bikers, and adaptive mountain bikers. So more of like a walking beginner
That's
mountain
right.
bike trail.
Okay, very good,
Yep.
thank you.
You say, so you're going to add another tunnel underneath Reardon?
Yep.
Now, when will that be planned?
We just approved that at the Planning Commission meeting in the beginning of January. I forget the exact date. And so that will be going in this spring. They'll be starting construction.
Where would that be in relation to where your flashing light is now?
Yeah, it will be.
Well, just tell me, I know where the area is.
Okay,
Is it going to be up the hill or towards 71?
Up the hill. It'll
Okay.
be basically where the current tunnel vision trail comes down to Reardon on the north side of the map. It'll basically connect right there, so it won't go to the east and then back to the west.
Yeah, Larry, I know that.
That one was one of the original 11 unders that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Remember,
What's that? There's a flashing light there now.
when this came about, originally there was 11 under. This was one of those that didn't happen. So now they're going back and putting it in.
Okay.
But I thought the 11 under, that we didn't do those was because of conflicts with fiber optic cable.
It was just one or two.
I think that
Wasn't
was-
all of them.
Wasn't all of them?
No, because we didn't go from 11 to 0.
No,
We went
we
from
didn't.
11 to 9 or 11 to 8, something like that.
Correct.
And we didn't know how to name it. Didn't just leave it as 11, we were all confused as to what to call it.
Okay, Bingley?
So then the Bingley connector will connect the current SBAT trail, right where Taylor Homestead connects into SBAT, to the current flow ride trail across Trafalgar, using Bingley and Skipton Lane to connect. So the connector will connect basically where you see the junction of the 2 brown trails over here, over to a parcel on Bingley Lane that is currently owned by the Trailblazers. And then we'll have on-road access to flow ride. And the purpose of that connector is to provide more loop options. Right now, the trails over there are very long, so if you go out on a bike ride or a hike, you're doing a 10 to 12 mile endeavor, whereas this will provide smaller options.
Generally, what's the length of this one, just order of magnitude?
This one's pretty short, about a 1/4 mile. Yeah.
Did you talk to property owners on this one also?
We've talked to a few property owners, and there actually is one property owner who is against this connection. He's against the access to Bingley Lane. But the way that the trail is accessing is through a property owned by Trailblazers, and so there's not much we can do because the Trailblazers currently own that property.
Yeah.
And then the last two parcels that we're adding are all of the Huntley Gravity trails. So the two parcels include all of those trails. And these trails already exist, as I'm sure you all know. And these parcels were previously owned by the Trailblazers, but then were just transferred over to the POA. So now we're just including them into our license agreement.
This is all that new trail stuff off Huntley that was on the north side, I guess, the side of.
Both the north and the
North
south
and the
side.
south.
Yep, so all the trails are at Huntley will now be
So we don't have to
included.
say those are private, we don't know about those anymore. Okay.
Exactly, yep.
Jerry?
Do you have to keep notes as to the people that you talk to, the neighbors that you talk to in the area? Do you keep notes as to who you talk to and what their response was,
Yeah, for the most part, we do keep records of that,
for the most part?
for the most part.
So you-
I'm still new, so I only have the records from since I started, but I believe I could acquire records from before my position.
And how many total miles will this add?
That's a great question.
I haven't seen a number on that.
I haven't seen the numbers, but based off
Well,
of
from what
looking.
I've just heard, running the total, we're talking about a couple of miles.
Yeah, I'd say excluding Huntley Gravity,
Right.
we're adding in the range of 3 to 5, 3 miles, 3 to 5
Okay.
miles, something like that, if not less.
No,
And
well,
then
you said-
Huntley,
Go ahead.
Huntley, the trails already exist.
Yes, no net new trails.
No, yeah, so no net new trails. So maybe 3 miles additional trails.
So that'll make a total what now then?
Total would be right around 100. I don't have the exact number,
100 miles,
approximately.
both
Little-
east and west, or just west?
Both east and west. Yeah.
Emily, is, just in fairness to the objector, the property owner who objected, could we reach out to them and just let them know the city council is going to entertain this next week, and if they wanted to speak to us, that would be their opportunity?
Absolutely, yeah,
Good,
no
thank you.
problem. Another question?
Just a comment, the 2040 plan proposes and recommends that we do 5 miles a year of trail addition. So this would be in keeping with that adopted plan that the council adopted. So
Yeah, exactly.
I think there are a lot of nice ads. I mean, it offers up some additional variety, One of the things I had mentioned to Tom at one point was it would really be nice to have some shorter loops. And there was one added over by my house. I really appreciate it because you get tired of going out and back all the time,
Yeah.
So, and two, for the addition for the families, the kids, and, to have a flat loop, that's really nice. So, yeah, I think it's great. Any- Go ahead.
At one point, you were going to give a presentation to the council about what you're doing and what your plans are for the future. Is that in the plans anytime soon, or?
That'll happen this spring. Yeah, I'm currently working on that.
Okay, anything else? All right, moving along.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, thanks, Ellen. Another resolution approving the mayor's reappointment of J.B. Portillo to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for a 4-year term expiring March 1st, 2026. Yeah.
I have a comment, and it's only a comment, and that is that if we were on the DOA board, we could not hold a seat on the city council.
Yes, you could.
You can?
Absolutely.
POA's got something
The
against it.
POA may have a rule against you being on the city council and serving on their board,
Yeah.
but there is no
They have a
legal
rule.
impediment to that person running for city council.
They have a rule. We don't have a rule.
We do not.
We do not have any sort of.
Because I tried that game.
Okay.
And I don't know that
Made the
they have a rule.
They do. I tried that game and they got nervous and they quick made the rule
Okay.
a while back.
I thought it was our rule.
No.
It's not ours, it's theirs.
If you're of age and are an elector, you can run for office. and then
I guess-
we'll be on the planning commission here one.
Jason, would it be appropriate if there's a matter before the planning commission that has to do with POA
Exactly.
property?
They may have a conflict can arise,
Yes.
whereas if they had some interest, then they may have to just not consider that vote, but that doesn't mean they're not qualified to be on the board.
Or a issue before the planning commission that would have an impact on the POA's operation.
That's what I was
Whether it's a
talking
water utility or some other thing that they deal with, so, yeah.
Okay, any further comment on this one? No. All right, next resolution, approving the mayor's appointment of Clayton Sudbury to the Bella Vista Planning Commission for a 4-year term expiring March 1st, 2026. I'm just going to say, I read the resume, it's impressive.
Yeah.
You know, he's,
Both of them.
yeah.
Both of them,
I had a comment
qualified.
on Clayton. I was surprised. I've seen him at the planning commission in action. He seems like a good guy. I was surprised to see that he had a master's of science in operation management, which is the program I teach in from 2015. I never had him as a student.
Don Robinson decided he wasn't going to continue on. He was with us from the very beginning of the city. In fact, he was able to, he was invited to say a few words at the last planning commission meeting. Don's one of those people that was at, literally here at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like, how do we do this city thing? He was at that table. So I'm going to be sad to see him go, but this is a replacement for his position. That's what
Yeah,
it's
he
about.
was pretty interesting, actually. He talked a little after the meeting. It was pretty interesting. He's talking about having to borrow a chair to sit in.
Yeah, we didn't have any furniture.
We didn't have any furniture.
Bring your own chair.
I know
Frank's
Clayton.
kitchen was only so big.
Clayton's a fine young man, and he's worked for the Springdale Planning Department for about 15 years.
Yeah.
Which is good background.
Okay. All right, so we're all good with that one? All right, next resolution, approving the mayor's reappointment of Damara Teitzer to the Bella Vista Arts Council for a 3-year term. I've had the opportunity to speak with her. I mean, she's really done a terrific job so far, and the mayor certainly fully supports her, says she's done an outstanding job. So does anyone else have any comments or questions? No?
Yeah, I think she's doing a good job.
Yeah. All right, the next resolution, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a contract with Cooper Communities Incorporated in the amount of $112,125 plus closing costs for the purchase of land near US 71 and the Missouri state line for usage as a fire department training facility. The floor is open.
Well, this is
Oh,
Steve.
I apologize. Yeah.
This
We don't
is
have-
we've got a piece of property to build a fire training facility. Steve's got all the info on that.
Okay, what do you want to know?
Tell them where it is first.
Yeah, how do we get there from here?
So if you go north on 71, where the wastewater is, where the wastewater pond is, and Bear Hollow Road where the transfer station is, Allied Waste, right there towards the front, not quite to the front of 71, because there's a little buffer there that Cooper would like to keep for commercial property, but sits right behind that area. So,
When you take the drive at the stop and go light back to Republic
No,
and Shelter, it's
no,
not
you
that
would
entrance?
well, you would enter that area right there, either turn into the wastewater or the next drive up. That's actually a road or.
Isn't that where the road's going to go in? So it's by the Bella Vista welcome sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, right there, if you
So
look,
that big parking lot
there's a
used to
road,
be.
right there by the sign,
Well,
but then it turns into dirt.
Used to be a rest area.
So everybody knows the history. I've been to all kinds of pieces of property here within Bella Vista, inside Bella Vista, just outside Bella Vista. And of course, the stuff outside Bella Vista is not, in order for it to be subject to covenants, has to be brought in by, Cooper has to allow that to happen. And it limits us to a lot of infrastructure we need for what we need to do. So that kind of threw some of them out. Anything that's inside Bella Vista that was prime, what they consider prime property, is something they wanted to steer away from. I met with Jody and Kent Berger back in the middle of July, or not July, but in the middle of 21 at their office, and they basically come up with this property here, this is kind of a industrial type facility that we're putting in there, roundabout way. It would kind of fit into that area on what we're trying to do. They come up with it. We went down there, I had CI look at it on paper, had CI kind of do some studies on it to see if drainage was gonna work and some other things that were happening. Jacob Shaw done that through CI at that time. We looked over it. I took my construction management team down there. We actually walked the site and what we're actually looking at, and they felt like it'd be viable if everything fell into place with engineering and so forth.
One of the conditions of this proposed agreement is there would be feasibility work done on this, and if
That's
it's
right.
not gonna work, then we don't have to buy it. Okay,
Right.
so,
We have 90 days from the date of execution, 90 days out to do all the work we have to do on site. We did meet Friday, or not Friday, it was Thursday of last week. Derek Lynn, myself, our construction management team, CEI, water department, sewer department, and we discussed a lot of this in detail. And from what I kind of gathered from it, Derek, it seemed like it was going to be viable. There was a couple of things that need to be worked out that they're going to do during the study. A couple of things we need to make sure that we weren't going to be digging into the dump or in the dump area that used to be there years ago. So, but it sounded like to me it's probably going to possibly work, but there is going to be some work needed with the road, right? In order to
Correct,
meet
yeah,
the-
some work on the road, and then also we want to make sure we get in, work with Jason on the conditions of the contract, to make sure we make it contingent on a lot split with the city staff and the planning commission.
That's
So,
right.
yeah.
And Doug and I did talk about that. So that, they have reached out to me already, Cooper has. They're going to the planning commission for that lot split.
Perfect.
So, but it's not really contingent, it's Cooper needs or actually CI needs a survey. And Cooper needs to know if CI is gonna approve of that survey on what they're surveying out for the city. And they have tried to contact, the survey company, and the survey company has not returned anything back to CI. So right now, we're kind of in limbo with whatever Cooper wants and what CI needs to be able to look at it and get a little bit more information about the site based off that, hopefully based off that survey.
Didn't that used to be the old hotel and the engineering
It
building
did.
for Cooper?
That's correct.
If you were here 100 years ago, it was still there and still in use as the engineering office. Like 10 unit hotel.
Years ago.
So Chief and I, we met out there. I just had questions because I knew that this was in conversation, to purchase this land for the fire training facility. And he was kind enough to meet me out and just kind of point to where everything was. And originally, the conversation was we thought we might, it might cost us around $25,000 an acre. And it actually, came back at $112,000. So I called the chief and asked him, because I'm like, okay, what's kind of going on with this, right? And there was actually an appraisal done on the property. And he provided me with the appraisal, so if anyone wants to see it, he does have it, he can send it to you. But it works through all the math, so, we're not being asked to pay from Cooper any more than what the appraisal price was, which you're kind of surprised, right?
That's right.
So,
Yeah, I thought it was-
Well, that was my question. Are we paying fair market value for the property?
We
It sounds like
are.
the answer is
it's
yes.
based on the
So-
appraisal, it's supported.
Yeah,
Okay.
we had it appraised back in, I believe it was in August, and I got the results from the survey, or the appraisal in September, and it was appraised for $37,500, and that's exactly the acre amount.
And who pays for the appraisal? The
We
city-
did.
the City does. And then my other question was, you mentioned, so this property is not necessarily a slam dunk yet, but you mentioned perhaps having looked at some properties that were outside the city limits, and that for those to be usable for this purpose, they would have to be brought into the covenants.
They
Is
would
that,
have
is
to
that
be-
so that we could provide water to it?
That water, yeah,
wouldn't
that's
use water
correct.
as not be away.
Water, and here's the other thing, that land, they decided not to sell it to us, so we didn't pursue that anymore. But that was the main thing, was, because at the time, we didn't have water coming through. The public safety building didn't have water when we looked at that back then. That's been well over a year ago.
Well, we're not having to go down that road, but say it had been adjoining property to the city of Bella Vista, and there was gonna be action to get it to access water by bringing it into covenant, we could annex it into the city, and it would be in the city of Bella Vista. We could, assuming it's not in another city, which I don't think it was out in the county, wasn't it? Or was it in another city?
This was, no, it was in the county.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah.
So we could have annexed it, but it would have been in the city by the time we were done, but.
Well, it sounds
We're
like
not
it was a
going down that
big
road.
challenge.
Yeah, it was.
basically.
We looked at all kinds of different places and stuff, and it just didn't, we looked at it going, like I said, going out 279, we did out there. And it was just gonna be this right here seems to be the best area, location to do what we wanna do, to keep from, the other thing we looked at was keep from disrupting neighbors, neighborhoods, because some areas we looked at were close to neighborhoods. We wanted to make sure that we weren't disrupting them with our noise and our smoke generation, which is not gonna be a whole lot, but everybody thinks when you have a burn building, you think of smoke, fire and smoke. So we were thinking about all of those variables there, and this ain't gonna affect too many people in that area.
Chair. Is this gonna be visible from 71, Will?
It's right on 71, Jerry.
I thought the way we told it was gonna be back further.
It's right on 71.
No, they'll see the training center as you come into 71, or from Missouri in on the right-hand side, you'll see it.
Will there be a fire truck station there?
There'll be apparatus there, yes.
So then actually this facility will provide some coverage then for.
It will provide some coverage at certain times of the day, and it'll give us additional area to store apparatus, our reserve apparatus, and utilize when we're out of apparatus. So during the daytime, it'll be manned for the most part, but there'll be people there stationed there during the daytime.
So this property is not currently in the POA, and so part of this agreement is we have to bring this property into the POA?
No, this property here,
Yeah.
I don't think Cooper's properties are in the POA. They have to be
If
brought
it's
in.
Cooper Reserved.
That's correct.
it would have to
It's
be-
got, if you look at the contract, it has to be brought into the.
Because I did, I read the whole thing,
Yeah.
and
It's
that's
got to
what
be
it
under the
said.
declaration, so it's not inside the POA currently, I wouldn't think.
That's part of the language that's in this agreement, is to bring it into the covenants. But in relation to that, Chief, what does that obligate the city to in terms of being under the Bella Vista Village POA covenants? As a homeowner, the obligation I have is that I pay a monthly fee.
We do.
And you'll do that, and
That's correct.
what is our rate gonna be for that building? Is that gonna
Same
be?
as
It'll be the same as any improved lot would be,
Okay,
so whatever y'all pay for improved lot.
$37 a month,
Yeah.
so that
I
would
pay,
be,
I pay for every building I have here currently,
okay.
except for one.
Okay. Then the other question I have is.
And we can, let me add something to that. We treat that fee like a utility access
It
fee,
is,
basically.
yeah.
Because we don't get utilities without paying that fee. That's kind of how we justify it.
A reasonable way to treat it. The other question I have is that they retain the utility drainage and access easements like they do on their plats. And so that means, will that mean that on the interior 7.5 feet around that whole lot, that will be reserved to Cooper as utility and drainage easements like they have on all of the subdivision lots?
Derek, I'll refer this to you. I know we talked about that in our meeting about the easements.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, and Jason may have some comments in regards to this, but the way it has been handled most recently is the city, as far as easements on properties that are under the lot split process, the city code requires that the city obtain public easements, okay, which is typical in any other community that has subdivision regulations. So the city, for the lot split, we would have a perimeter public easements, and then the city has been allowing CCI to do a subordinate. We've been requiring this language that it's secondary and subordinate to the public easement, where they do their 7.5 easement strips that you're referring to, Larry. So if we were to continue down that existing precedent that we've had in place with the right now, then that's how we would look at that. However, yeah, like I said, Jason, do you have anything additional to that?
No, I think that's correct. It's subordinate, and so we do what we need to do, and that's covers us.
So as an example, if the city at this facility chose to have natural gas service for their operation there to create smoke and burn things up, do we have to get Cooper's approval to run natural gas across that?
If it's going to be run in any private easement, we would have to talk to them about it, but you'd have to get a gas pipe from
Well, I'm
Well,
just.
you know,
the hypothetical-
Walgreens all the way up to the Missouri state line.
Hypothetical is that if it were available and we wanted to bring it onto our lot from public right-of-way,
We have to have a public right to put anything in the ground, okay? So we'd have to get the pipe to our property. If it was to our property, then we wouldn't have to get their permission to put it in there.
Well, put a propane tank in, don't worry about it.
well, I know that's, but I'm using that as the scenario.
But that's way out in left field, dragging natural gas from Benton County 40 out to the state line. That's crazy. to even
Well,
think
I
about.
don't know if there's natural gas north of the state line.
No, there's not.
There isn't any.
And then bringing that
And then you gotta
utility
find
into the
somebody who's
state of
gonna do it.
Arkansas is potentially a federal issue.
I get your point though, Larry. You're asking if we have to have
Yeah, we've
permission
been
from
that
Cooper
route
to
before.
do
Exactly right.
anything in
Yeah.
regards
Yeah.
to something like that. Do we
If
have
they're,
to go to Cooper
if
for
they're
permission?
subordinate, no,
Okay.
no.
So then why do we even permit it to be there on the plat to have private control? Even if it's subordinate, if it doesn't mean anything, then why is it there?
I didn't say it didn't mean anything, it's just they have a right as well. You'll have to ask them why they insist upon it. It's been a matter of compromise for us. We just as soon it not be there at all. But in order to get some deals done and some things done in the past, that's what we've agreed to because it allowed us to do what we needed.
I imagine this is somewhat standard of any contract that Cooper Communities would write for
I'm saying this would
anyone.
be a standard acquisition.
We are in the
contract. I've done it
unenviable,
before.
we are in a position, I think you all understand this. Yes, we're the government, and yes, we have power of eminent domain, and yes, we can exercise all this authority, and then they say no water. And so we have to, unless we're gonna have a multi-year expensive litigation over that issue, which we almost had to have, we've got to work with them in some way. And so this is one of those ways we've tried to do it.
And this is different than a new subdivision development where
Well,
they're proposing private easements around the perimeter of that subdivision.
It's not a new subdivision, I mean, we're
No,
gonna have a
I know.
lot
I
split, so it's not a
understand.
subdivision.
This is just a parcel, I
Right.
understand that,
Mhm.
right.
And it is gonna be such a lot split, and there are certain requirements in terms of public right-of-way dedication as it relates to lot splits. Taylor, am I saying something wrong?
No, I think, I have a
Yes,
question,
it is.
just like pertaining to what you guys were talking about, with the easements, with them being, subordinate and non-exclusion or whatever, but, Larry, are you trying to, do we need is an easement release applicable to the city even though it's a shared easement?
An easement release, what are we talking
To
about?
bring like a utility across an easement line?
If
Because right now, like a building permit needs an easement release to run a septic line or utility line across the side easement. Would the city also be in the same?
Well,
boat?
no, because it's public, so it would be allowed for public use as long as it would allow others to connect to it within our public easement. So I don't see where it really gives any Cooper any veto over any of those issues, but we haven't had to litigate it yet or anything. I don't know that we'd have to litigate it here. We're talking about buying a piece of property for fire training, and I don't, I don't know that.
And what they're doing is they're restricting that by saying we're going to have a perimeter easement as they've done on all of their platted lots in the city. Everybody's lot in the city has a 7.5-foot Cooper-controlled drainage and utility easement on their lot. And it's on the interior boundary.
I think I can make it simpler.
Okay.
I think that at any point in the, we do this to reach agreement with them. At any point in the future, it reached a point where we thought their subordinate easement got in our way. We could take it away through eminent domain and pay them the value, which would not be much because it's a subordinate easement to a public easement that's already in existence.
So it doesn't
And so
say.
the fee owner would really would not even be damaged, and I can't see where their underlying easement would hardly have any value. So it seems a small concession to make to get the deal done.
My only question was, it says retained, or retaining this right.
Well,
on
because
this
they own the
parcel.
property now, so they're retaining the easement. Because they have full fee simple interest in the lot. So they're gonna convey to us but retain an easement. That's what that means.
Okay, so on that plat of survey or subdivision plat of that land, will it show only the Cooper 7.5 foot or?
It's gonna show all of it.
It'll show the whole parcel, but it'll show their easement. Will it show a public easement as well?
It should. We won't approve it.
Public easement as well?
We wouldn't approve it without that.
Okay.
Hey, I know where you're coming from. I didn't like reading that in there either. It's just a
I just
sticking
wanted to
point with
understand
me.
where we were.
But to what Jason just said, because I've heard him say it enough times, I knew that we could condemn it if we had to in the future. So, but I still don't like it being there, but it is what it is.
When you do
So anyway,
when you do condemnation, there's a cost for that.
yeah.
And normally you wouldn't go into it thinking you'd have this potentially thousands of, but, you know, you're only paying for the value of what it is that you're taking, and you're talking about a subordinate interest. So is it, first of all, I don't think it's ever gonna come up. Second of all, if it came up, it would be a minimal cost, I would anticipate, but you never know what the future brings. Third, we ain't got many choices left.
Yep. Okay, we done?
Hope so.
Anybody have anything else? All right. So, next resolution. Amending the 2022 city budget to appropriate $9,800 from otherwise undesignated and unappropriated reserves to the Bella Vista Public Library, account number 60-53600 for purchase of HVAC air sanitizers. Anyone have any comment or questions? Are we talking this at length? Special? Larry?
I have a dumb question again. When we talked about it the last time, I asked whether it was a filter or an ozone generator or something like that that would kill the stuff. And it looks like the terminology has changed from a filter to an air sanitizer. Can we clarify that?
Well, I don't know, but I can read this. This is eliminate, this REMI Halo will eliminate sick building syndrome risk by reducing odors, air pollutants, chemical odors, smoke, mold, bacteria, and viruses. It is mounted to the existing air conditioning and heating ducts where most sick building problems start. It creates an advanced oxidation process consisting of ionized hydroperoxides. You all know what that is, right? Superoxide ions and hydroxide ions. They're all friendly oxidizers. I guess some of those are not, and this one particularly does have one. So this diagram is fairly easy. The bacteria, the molds go into the air handler, and then this REMI takes all of that stuff, and before it comes out the duct into the building, it filters it. It purifies it.
Good? All right. Yes, all right. Let's move on.
I have,
No, you leave well enough alone.
I have a lower bid, because somebody came to see me about bidding on this project, so.
Same equipment?
Yeah.
Same equipment?
Same equipment.
That we wanted to hear. Thank you.
Do you want to know?
How much was that bid?
I know it's under cost. Because I looked it up. $8,096.
That's significant. And that doesn't affect the warranty or anything on the system?
No, it
Because I
doesn't.
knew you mentioned it.
As long as they're licensed professionals, it does not affect the warranty.
There you go. All right, nice job. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, next resolution, authorizing the mayor and city clerk to enter into a third amended trail maintenance agreement with Bella Vista Village Property Owners Association.
It's another Emily issue, but from all I know is that the mayor was willing to, and in the budget, there was an increase in the share, the 50-50 share we commit to trail maintenance. That's what this is, and it's for the whole system, so that's where I drop off, and that's where you pick up.
That was great.
Is that
That's
it?
exactly what it is. The city and the POA verbally agreed to up our contributions on both sides to $70,000 for $35,000 for the back 40 trails, $35,000 for the Little Sugar trails. And this was agreed upon verbally last year, I believe last summer. And the budget that we approved in December, we approved the $70,000 on the city side. So this is just the kind of the documentation for that increase in cost.
Does that include maintenance on the Metfield connector as well? Is that included in all that agreement?
I believe
Yes,
it is.
It is.
It includes maintenance on any of the public use
Any of
trails.
Yep,
That's the only ones we can contribute to maintenance on, so.
yep.
Everything in which that license agreement pertains to is subject to the maintenance agreement.
So we allocate the money to the POA, and then they are the ones that actually approve and write the check for expenditures. Is that how that works?
So the POA is in charge of all maintenance requests, so they either do the work themselves or hire out a contractor to do the work, and then they send us an invoice for 50% of that cost.
And we had, when we initially did this, we agreed upon a schedule of charges, so when the POA did the work in-house, it wasn't an open-ended, we knew what that was gonna cost toward the maintenance expense, so we had some basis for paying, other than just an invoice for nothing. And so that's still in place. I don't know that that's ever been modified, but sometimes I guess they do get other contractors to do that. I don't know all the details, but it's 50/50.
So is it a hard fast? I mean, we are going to spend $70,000 period, or can it come in, not necessarily?
Yeah, it may be 50, it may be 60, but it could be 70.
Gotcha, okay.
Could it be more than 70?
No. They'd have to come back
We
to
can't-
us, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think what it does suggest is we're still really in the early phases of understanding, I think, what the entirety of the trails mean to Bella Vista, both on the benefit side and on the cost side. And so what we know is $35,000 wasn't enough, times two. So more was needed. And I think that reflects where we are, really still kind of coming to terms with what's it gonna mean to us to have this 100 miles of trails? What's the cost to us? What are the benefits to us? So.
Well, the first 35 though was just for the first
For the
back
back
40,
Yeah, it was back
and then we
So
doubled
it makes
it.
sense
Sure.
that it would be,
Yeah.
Yes.
So, okay. Does anybody have anything else?
There's a couple discussion items.
Yeah.
Oh, I
Two
apologize, I
discussions. Nice
apologize.
try.
You know what? Doug, why don't you go first?
Okay. Yeah, so the discussion item on the city and the POA, that came from an internal meeting that Tom and I decided to schedule monthly. We haven't met since December, so this is pretty old, because we didn't meet in January because the city was closed. But this was so that he and I could discuss some internal items, just so that we're on the same page. He updates me on some of their projects, I update him on some of theirs, so that we don't get, either side doesn't get blindsided. So these were just some of the things that happened in that first meeting. Like I said, that was a couple of months ago. He's letting me know about the Lake Ann sinkhole, the beer garden, we're gonna submit their CUP, to operate again this year.
What does CUP do?
The conditional use permit. Trail updates, sign updates, wayfinding signs, and so things like that. I let him know that we were exploring short-term rentals, so more of just an inter-office update. And I mentioned it to the mayor one day. I was in his office updating, and so I think that's why he stuck it on the agenda, just so that I could let you know that we were doing those sort of things. So every couple of months, me or Emily or Derek or Taylor will get asked about something, and if we don't know what the POA is doing, sometimes we kind of feel like we should. So I think this will help stop some of that.
Good communication process.
Yeah, good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Jerry?
I had some contractor issues that I thought that maybe the council should be aware of and look at. Doug and I have gone over them, and I think we've got them all handled, so I don't think it would probably be of any benefit to bring it to the full council to discuss.
Okay, very good. Is that it?
That's it.
All right. Meeting adjourned. Good evening.
Hey, Doug,
Give me your-
when you gave me that map last week, you gave me the Mercy map. I'm looking for the